We are, I'd like to say that we're in the infancy stages of our business, but we're really kind of a little premature. We're very, very young. Our whole, well, here, let's see. Our vision is we want to run a micro dairy in Suffolk. Raw milk is sold on the East End. So much of the fresh stuff is on the East End. We don't have so much in Western Suffolk. I live in Huntington, which is also why I'd like to keep my business there. What we'd like to do, obviously we'd like to get into raw goat milk sales. As far as I know right now, Thai Clute is the only one who does raw milk sales, and that's cow milk, and that's Riverhead. So we kind of like to bring goat products, something fresher to Western Suffolk. We produce goat milk ice cream, and we also produce a caramel. I do have samples of the ice cream here. We make 4 flavors. We make chocolate, mocha, vanilla, and cinnamon. It's all goat milk. There's no cow products in it whatsoever. It's all goat milk, sugar, and whatever the flavorings is, the chocolate, the vanilla, whatever else. But it's, as far as everything, this is all natural. This is actually my mom milking one of my goats.
Keep her working.
Yeah. So we really are teeny tiny. But this has been, just as a side thing, my mom has problems with her hands. This has been the most therapeutic thing for her.
Sure.
Obviously, as we get bigger, we would go to machine milking, but right now we're milking by hand.
Excuse me for
By
one
mom.
Hold
My
on.
goats.
One
what?
quick second. There's vanilla?
There's vanilla, chocolate, cinnamon, and mocha.
Okay.
I have the chocolate.
I have 30 of each. Last month was a smaller group, so I just went by that.
And if you can't decide, we're moving on.
So why we decided to go with goats, size matters, for us anyway. The goat milk has its own specific benefits, which we can get into. They're less expensive to purchase and to feed. They require less pasture space, less barn space. They're certainly less intimidating than cows, as you can see my mother's surrounded here. And they can be very, very therapeutic. I started out with my goats, just as an aside, with my goats as being therapy animals. That's how we got into Huntington, and we've been kind of expanding ever since. Now, why goat milk? A lot of people who are lactose intolerant are actually allergic to that A1 protein. Goat milk doesn't have it. Never had it, never will. So a lot of people who are A1 allergic, who have to drink that A1 cow's milk or whatever, goat milk doesn't have it. Never had it. So if you have that particular allergy, you're fine with goat milk. The smaller fat globules in goat milk make it much easier to digest. It makes the nutrition a lot easier. And it's also, because of the smaller fat globules and the easier digestion, a lot of babies can drink goat milk. And also it contains naturally occurring probiotics that if we went to pasteurize, it would kill them off. So the raw goat milk is really kind of where we're at. It's naturally homogenized to a point. If you leave it in your refrigerator for a week, you will start to see separation in the cream and the milk. This is where we're at right now. This is our hobby farm. This is, we're located in Huntington Station. Right now I have 3 does and a wether. A wether is just a male neutered goat. We have the goat milk. We have the recipe for the ice cream and for the caramel. And we have a definite passion for dairy farming. Okay, this is where we would like to be. We'd like to have a farm large enough to house 15 to 20 goats, a facility to feed and milk the goats. We would need a clean room to run the 12 to 15 gallons of milk that we would be producing. This is just for raw milk sales, and the equipment to process it, which would be to filter, chill, and bottle it. We would also need a kitchen to produce and package the ice cream and the caramel. But this is where we would like to be. And what we need to get there, this is actually my mother's goat. We need a whole lot of advice on the property acquisition, sale or lease, permits, regulation interpretation is a really big thing for us because this is absolutely a work of faith, because regulation interpretation in the dairy business is very hairy. So anybody who's good with the regulation interpretations, I could definitely use your help. Cost analysis, point of sale, and any recipe adjustments as you test the ice cream, any kind of feedback or anything like that. I think that's it. Yeah. On the side, my husband is a veteran, he's a Marine. We happen to. We happen to We happen to have a real heart for this. Now, we would also like to be nonprofit in the fact that when we had our babies last year, we were able to donate 2 Dolings to a military family down in Virginia. We're looking, I have 1 pregnant goat right now, and we're looking to donate those babies to an autistic preschool. They have a little farm on there. And eventually, if we could ever get big enough, we would love to be able to have a facility big enough to be able to house veterans temporarily if they don't have access to goats, or if they want access to goats, if they want to keep a goat with us, that they would be able to come and spend time on the farm. It's just kind of where our heart is. The Holy Goat Milk Products, how did we get that name? Believe it or not, when we had first put our farm together and we brought the goats home, I had asked the ministers from my church to come and bless my goats. And they did it very happily. And when we started kind of joking around that, you know, these are holy goats now, and we have a Holy Goat Milk product and this and that, it was approved by my minister so that we weren't mocking anything. So that's how we ended up being the Holy Goat Milk Products. And it's kind of been a faith walk. We'd like to get bigger, and we'd like to be able to give back. So that's kind of where we're at. Any questions or comments or anything I didn't explain? I'm a little nervous up here, so.
In premium products and the like, Chevra certainly is a popular product in growing in space. Can you be cost competitive in delivering that sort of product?
We don't do anything savory, we only do sweet. Right now, we're just doing the raw milk sales and the ice cream and the caramel. I don't do, we're sweeter side, we don't do anything savory right now.
You're considering cheese as being savory?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, just like sugar added, basically is what we're doing. It's just really the caramel, the ice cream. We wanted to get into something that was a little different than what everybody else who has goats was doing. And the raw milk sales was a fairly big deal because we've gotten a lot of feedback, and I've had a lot of people come and ask me for it. I have not sold anything yet. I cannot sell anything yet. I don't have all of my proper, I don't have permits and things like that, which is where my regulation interpretation comes in. We are just getting off the ground, so we wanted to present now, so anything you could feed back to us at this point to help us get ahead of maybe some mistakes that we may make somewhere.
So I want to break it down because there's a lot of category here, and I know there's a lot of people that represent these different ones. So maybe we can take one, keep the questions focused, like one, if we're going to work on the product, because I've got a couple of questions for the regulation, which I'm going to ask Bob about, and maybe even some of the accounting questions, because I know we have a whole bunch of accountants in the room now. Really, because are you incorporated now, or are you not?
We are an LLC, which we needed to be able to do to get product tested.
Okay.
Nobody wanted to test product for me unless I actually had a business.
Go ahead.
Comment, it's a very nice product.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well done.
Very good.
Yeah, very good.
It's made, the ingredients in it, I'll give you, I can run down the ingredient list on everything. It's goat milk, it's sugar, and basically whatever the flavorings is. It's goat milk in different forms. There's some goat milk caramel in there. There's some regular goat milk. We do add eggs because goat milk doesn't have the same amount of fat as regular cow milk. We're going to be actually sending stuff in so we can get our calorie count and all of our analysis and stuff like that going. But it's basically the cinnamon ice cream. It's just cinnamon, sugar, goat milk.
So Bob, because it's a it's a milk-based product or goat product, what does she have to worry about? Or what are the regulations or testing?
So you mentioned another company is currently selling unpasteurized goat milk, correct?
Cow milk. That's
Oh,
Thai food out east.
Oh, but it is raw. So
It's
that
raw.
First cut is the ability to sell an unpasteurized product, and in what geography? Is it New York State or whatever it might be?
Well, right now he's located, Thai food is located in Riverhead. I've actually been out to visit his facility. It's a really sweet little facility. Maybe a little jealous, I have to say. That's our biggest thing with the raw milk sales. We know it's legal, but we need to get a clean room set up. We need to get all of our equipment because it has to be filtered in a certain way and it has to be chilled immediately.
Okay, so those are some of the requirements, a certain size filter, etc.
Right. Now, I believe also to make the ice cream out of it. Now, what I'm doing right now is it's really more of a custard base because there's egg yolks in it from my chickens. It came from my chickens.
Self-sustaining vertical.
So it has to be
And so the
It's
eggs raw
cooked.
as well going in?
going in, right, but the whole custard is cooked to 160 degrees, which is what cooks the eggs out.
So who governs you? New York State Ags and Market on this product?
It
Yeah.
it would be New York State.
Yeah.
So we can introduce,
the
have
Ag
you
and
spoken
Market.
to them? Yeah.
That could be Ag and Market on that one.
Have you spoken to them?
I have, and they actually offered to come out and help me set up and everything else, but I'm a farm on a very small piece of land. And in order for me to expand, I need more property. And I mean, I briefly talked to you about that, about the opportunity for property upstate, but we'd like to really, for personal reasons, I'd like to stay in Huntington if it's at all possible, and bring something that the East End has capitalized on for so long to Western Suffolk. I mean, to get raw milk, you'd have to go to Riverhead.
Have you thought about talking with Peconic Land Trust?
I did. Peconic Land Trust right now, they're more interested in dirt farmers than livestock farming. I know they have helped a free-range chicken company.
Yeah, that's Chris Brown of Browder's Birds. That's why I was thinking, I know him well, and so that's why I thought it'd be a natural as well.
I mean, we had toyed with the idea of going east. I'm not completely against the idea of going east, but I know things like this exist there already, and that's why I was kind of trying to bring something to people in Western Suffolk that, so they wouldn't have to travel an hour to go and get these things.
So you have talked, you have spoken with them.
I did, and they've been more than willing that as soon as I have a piece of land, they'll come, they'll walk over everything with me, and they'll show me exactly how to set everything up. But until I actually have a piece of land that I can farm on, that's kind of what puts us in the preemie stage.
Okay.
If you found that piece of land, are you looking to acquire it or first like under a different company? Then have you thought about best case scenario, how much, what your capital expenditures would be to create this, I assume, 20 or so, farm?
Well, cost analysis is definitely one of the things that we need help with. We're at the point now where we're gathering all of our receipts and everything else to figure out exactly what it is that it costs me to feed my goats and things like that. We're trying to put records together now as far as cost analysis goes, but that's definitely something we could use help with.
Mike, does the Food Council work with SCORE.org?
Yes.
Their local office. SCORE.org is a national website that basically has local business plan consultants that are local in every market, and they help navigate through that cost analysis and exactly how to.
That's score.org.
SCORE.org.
It's free.
Like a mentoring program, but it's free.
There's a retirement chapter, right?
Yes.
Oh, yes,
As far as, I just want to speak to the product itself.
okay.
As you can probably see, I'm an ice cream lover. And, lately, I've been, I'm metformin, I have the possibility of diabetes, I have to, watch my sugar, so I drink this stuff now. And I've been looking for something to satisfy my ice cream, and it's always somewhat disappointing. This is not at all disappointing. This was consistent, creamy, it melted just enough, you know what I'm saying, without turning watery. Wonderful. And as far as recipe adjustment, I would, take any suggestions with a grain of salt, because you have something that I think, in my opinion, is working.
What flavors did you try?
The chocolate and the mocha and the vanilla.
Okay.
All right. And in my experience with my product, when someone tries to give me a recipe adjustment and I try it, for some reason it just doesn't work and the product isn't what it was or what we want it to be. So I just wanted to give you an idea of like, this works. Maybe you don't
Okay.
want to adjust it too much,
What's your vision for the company, let's say 5 or 10 years down the road? Do you want to have big farms? Do you want to run big factories? Do you want to just focus on one of those things? What's your real passion within this, this space?
In my own mind, I'm thinking I'd like to keep it small. I know all my animals personally, my animals all know me. A big part of this is my love for the animals and just the joy that they've given me. So I'd like to keep, I'd like to actually almost use Ty Clute as a model for the raw goat milk sale. He's basically, you drive into his farm, you pick up your bottles, you leave your old bottles. But as far as the ice cream goes, I would love to get that into something bigger. Absolutely would love to get that into something bigger. But I believe with the dairy regulations for my ice cream, I'm gonna have to pasteurize the milk
Yeah.
before I can do anything to it.
Yes.
So that's a kind of an extra process. So if I had to separate the ice cream and the caramel sales to one particular area, because we do have land available to us upstate, and keep the raw milk sales maybe down here, only because I don't really feel like in the area in upstate New York where we would be, there would be a large demand for the raw milk, like there would be down here with everybody kind of being on the, I don't want to say a goat kick, but, you know, everybody's into it now. And there are definitely benefits to it, absolutely over cow's milk. Because of the smaller fat globules, I believe it's easier on diabetics also. So,
Lower
there's that question.
hypoglycemic index.
Yeah, what is the fat content in the ice cream?
I have to, that's something we have to send in to be analyzed, and now that we're in LLC, we can send samples in.
So eat it now before you find out.
It should be, because oat milk has less fat and regular cow milk.
Now
It
it's
should be
nothing.
lower in fat, and you do use less sugar.
It's nothing now, so go ahead.
This is the normal portion size.
Yes, good.
Simon, did you have a question?
So I was just wondering what level of recognition you have, if it's relatively similar to dairy.
If
But I
it's,
think the question was answered.
oh, okay.
So then I got one, just a quick question, because this is for the accounts. Because you want to go nonprofit, you're an LLC now, because you want to give back to the veterans and to disabled. Does she have to do that, I mean, can't she just start another division,
I
or?
believe I can switch over
Or
to
does
nonprofit.
should she switch over if she's building her goat milk business? I mean, what makes sense for her? Because she just formalized the LLC. Any? Yeah.
I can't comment technically, I'm just saying that, you know, you could just be a social entrepreneurship company where you're still a regular company, but you're giving back, and you build that into the DNA of the company. So we work with a number of companies where, for example, we have someone who's selling gloves to the food service industry. For every case of food he sells, he donates the equivalent of a meal to Highland Harvest. And so he's still making his money as a corporation, but he's still giving back to the community.
Is there any benefit to doing that as far as like when you're not profit, you're not taxed? Is there any sort of
Well, he gets a tax benefit for his donation.
donations?
I mean, this was, we hadn't,
It's trying to get the.
We can speak with you offline.
Okay.
Because there are a lot of rules around not-for-profits, if that's the world.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because if she's already paid to be an LLC, why pay again to now change it over? Stick on one path if it could work, rather than, you know, waste the money, not waste, but to keep spending money on something every year. I'll get Harvey.
Yeah, so I'm sure one of the challenges you're facing is some cash or money. Is that an issue for you?
well, whatever we did as far as land goes, we would definitely mortgage that, but we do have, I believe at this point, enough capital to get us to
Well,
really.
one of the questions, or one of the statements, is that the SBDC, which is Small Business Development Corp., right here on 110 in Farmington College, helps small businesses.
They're good.
It could be grants, it could be, and I'm working with one of the women there now, who's helped one of the companies that I'm involved with, and they are truly helpful in every way. So there may be something, I mean, I don't know if there are programs, but they seem to be for a small business, especially a veteran, a woman, that these are businesses that.
Is that Stacy? Stacy Hansen?
We actually did we were dealing with somebody down at the Small Business Development Center, and wasn't he saying that the benefits for veterans now have been, a lot of them have been cut back?
Well, I mean, just small business, helping small businesses. I mean,
We have been working with them. They actually helped us get our LLC together.
Oh, good.
And they were the ones actually that suggested that eventually we switch over to nonprofits because of the donations.
Sure,
And just one thing about the donations, we didn't, the town was busting our chops about the amount of goats that we had. And I know somebody that works with the dog foundation that provides the dogs for the veterans, the service animals and stuff like that. And that's how we actually met this couple. I had no idea. You know, we kind of figured we're taking a road trip and taking a couple of goats down to Virginia. I had no idea the impact that it was going to make on our lives. I mean, my husband ended up going off with the veteran and they kind of did their chit-chatting and I chit-chatted with the wives and stuff like that. But we walked away with such a, it was just such an overwhelming feeling that we were able to do something for somebody, to give somebody the same benefits from our goats that we had gotten, to be able to pass that on to somebody else. And that's what really started pushing the idea of working with veterans for us. And it might be selfish, but I walked away with such a high from it that I was like, you know what, we got to do this with all of our babies. And they're valuable goats. They're all purebred mini Nubian goats. I can sell the babies, which could be like another part of the business, I guess. But that's kind of where we stand. But the whole thing with the veterans was kind of a big deal to both of us when we got home. I don't think either one of us really anticipated how we were going to be affected by it. So we'd like to continue in that vein. And apparently just donating the babies alone would be enough to put us in the nonprofit.
And again, I guess, which is the way to go, is you can always donate, you can always give, and figure out what's best for your growth. The point of sale, I guess, where you're looking to distribute, is any suggestions, any help on how she should go about that currently?
Well, right now she can only sell direct from a farm if you get approved, right? Or you wouldn't get into retail without pasteurization.
Right, raw milk, I believe has to be point of sale, and it also has to be sold within 24 hours. But I've also spoken to Armelinos, which is a raw dog food company. They would buy anything I couldn't sell in 24 hours. And it would be perfectly legal to sell it as dog food.
What
Which kind
about-
of kills me, but.
What about farm stands? Would that be the same kind of thing where you'd have to have the pasteurization?
No, if it was sold directly from the farm, and
Yeah.
we were filtering and chilling to regulation, and it was sold within 24 hours, we would be perfect.
With farmers markets, could you do farmers markets?
It's not point of sale then at this point. And dairy is kind of,
You'd still be under agro though at a market.
yeah, but I think dairy is so specifically regulated at this point, and even not so much for cheese, but for ice cream, it would be harder. I mean, we transported everything on dry ice. We've never had a problem doing that. But obviously the Department of Agriculture is not gonna want me driving around with a cooler full of dry ice. Yeah. So that's kind of where we're at.
When you get to the point of your clean room, I may be able to offer you some assistance with some contacts.
Oh, that'd be awesome. That would be awesome.
I'll reach out to you.
Is there any other suggestions or questions? I guess, and how many goats again are you?
Right now, I have 3 females, 1 male.
What does
And
Huntington say you're allowed to have?
Huntington permitted me 3. This particular goat's not mine, this one's my mom's.
Is that can you give them out to the family and claim them out yours?
You know
Anybody else
what?
want to take ownership of goats for her?
I wouldn't,
Who's one of them? You got 30 or 40 right here.
right,
You can get goats.
well, I will warn you, they get up to, what are they, 100 and,
Ziggy's probably around
he's over 200.
Oh, my God.
Ziggy's over 200 pounds.
I don't think we
But
want
they
to
can-
keep them in our yard. I think we always take care of
Right.
them.
Foster.
Right.
But they really are the most awesome animals. And like I said, I mean, you can walk into the pen, they are friendly as anything, and we're trying to get our one little wether trained to a cart, a little goat cart, so.
And then I guess the last question is really just where do you want to begin? I mean, the pasteurization, or do you want the property, or growing your?
Honestly, I'd like to start, if I could, with the raw milk sales, just to let people know us. It's also less processing, so it's less cost for me. And then once we kind of get ourselves established, I would love to go right into the ice cream. I mean, the ice cream, we could sell anywhere.
Question with the ice cream, are you willing to or open to other suppliers of goat milk that meet your quality standards, or does all that milk need to be produced at your farm?
It doesn't all, I mean, obviously I would prefer that because I know how I handle my animals. I know their medical records. I know, you know, when they've been injected. I know when they've been wormed. I know when. I prefer to have control of that myself, although if it was somebody that I trusted and I felt like I had a good rapport with, I wouldn't be opposed to that.
That's going to be your biggest growth. You know, if you find the right supplier that meets your quality, that has tons of supply, you can scale really big. If your suppliers only are, you know, have a few goats here and there, it's going to be tough to get enough supply of the milk to make ice cream and distribute it and all that.
That's why we had thought, you know, if we had to kind of separate our operations, we could move the ice cream to upstate New York. You know, we've got land available to us there. So I'm kind of in a little bit of a torn position. I mean, my personal situation is I just moved my mother next door to me. And all of my goats are in her backyard right now. My mother's 87 years old and milks goats every day, twice a day. So it's something to send to
Did you move any closer to your mother or the goats?
I think it's a little of both.
A lot of joint ventures, the Capitano family sells a lot of cheese on the North Fork, and they have a lot of goats. It might be at least beneficial for you to speak with them, since you seem to have another niche as opposed to what they have.
I actually have been out to speak with them because I know that they pasteurize Ty Klude's milk because he makes cheese. Ty Klude also makes cheese with his cow milk, and you can't make cheese without the milk being pasteurized. But because he's a raw milk sales, he has to send his milk out to be pasteurized and then returned to him. So I know Catapano does do their pasteurization there. I've spoken to them, and they just didn't seem, you know, maybe I caught her on a bad day, because I would imagine being a farmer every day, twice a day is, I mean, I know what it's what it's like for us and for them to do with the amount of goats. She didn't seem the most thrilled about being a farmer. And it's funny because I guess depending on who you talk to on what day, people are either thrilled with it or they're like, well, if you like getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning every day. And even the people with the Department of Agriculture have said to me over and over and over again, make sure you know what you're getting into.
Right.
Make sure you know what you're getting into. Dairy farming is not like dirt farming. So, you know, we've been going back and forth with this because we were kind of doing it as a family, and it's a lot of time, and it's definitely a lot of effort. But I personally think it's worth it.
I may have missed it, I'm not sure, but one thing I haven't heard is the numbers involved. You know, have you done any kind of like a market survey to see the demand for a product like this and when you get charged, what it costs you, how much you can produce? Because you've got a lot of things going here that are for a business to scale, to really grow. And it seems to me a lot of people started thinking through some of those steps, but before delving into any of them, I would highly recommend really ironing out what this is going to end up costing and how it's going to run and all those things.
Well, that was one of the things.
Set for it before you go ahead looking into other areas of business to do it with. You start with just say ice cream, and then how much can you make on it, what does it cost to produce, how much can you produce of it, and where do you need to distribute it and who wants it. Start there. Then kind of scale from that.
Well, that would be one of the things we could definitely use help with, as far as, you know, finding out exactly what our market is.
Now, you think about the geography, Long Island versus upstate New York, and on theory, it's going to bring milk into this region. Long Island in the city, it's a lot higher, it's a lot more cost. You know, for a dairy company, all in Long Island, and it's not supposed to upstate New York. You know, there's money. There are no dairy processors left on Long Island and New York City, and that might be for a reason. So you have to be mindful of the cost to operate your kind of business within this region.
I think there are two factors in that. One is cost of land. Where for Oakdale it made more sense to turn it into condos than continue running dairy. Second is cost of labor. Where labor, they were a unionized house, and union labor always is going to put you in a competitive advantage, right? In terms of the cost of the dirt, let's face it, we used to have 36 duck farms out on the east end of Long Island. And from start to finish, we now have one duck farm on Long Island. So as the uses of the land changes, keeping animals on them isn't nearly as good as going to the North Fork that has more sunshine than anywhere else in New York State and a climate that's mitigated by being surrounded by water. So viticulture is the highest and best use of that land. And the idea of finding land, especially in western Suffolk, where the demand is high on industrial, and industrial prices are rising. And Harvey just went through a search right now for one of his clients, and in the last 2 years, has seen a 50% rise in the cost for industrial. That's what's happening to the underlying land. And your probability of finding land for animal agriculture in western, I think you've maximized your capability, except you can put 2 more goats on your mother's property. And that's about as far as you can go with it.
So it's kind of dead in the water for me.
Here, just the western side.
Well, as a local, you would have a local business that you can sell point of sale, but if you really want to grow and expand, that expansion capability, your overhead here on Long Island, just as we all know, labor and land, it's tough.
So we may have to think about going upstate.
These will be your sample goats.
You could also,
So you're
Yes.
sampling with these guys.
Well, I wouldn't, honestly, because these are mini Nubians, I wouldn't stick with mini Nubians. I would go with regular sized Nubians. They're even friendlier than this, and they produce almost twice as much milk.
But I think what you can do is kind of what you've been doing, but a proof of concept here on Long Island, essentially, right? Get through the marketing, the branding, get through all of the cost analysis, and do that on a small scale, right at first here, and go through all the legalities and everything else until you're ready to ramp up, and then knowing it's great that you already have an opportunity in upstate New York for expansion at some point, right? So work out all the kinks here, work on your recipes, get it to market, get sampling going, get the feedback from people so you really understand before you plan to grow it.
you could always keep your goats in your backyard as like, you know, the thing that you love to do with your family, and build a goat milk and goat ice cream business with different suppliers and different supply chain outside of your own. And it might be much easier to scale and manage from your Huntington headquarters if you just found good people with the right specs, maybe even you're a consultant to help them get to the right, you know, quality of the farm and care for the animal. And then you can grow much faster without having to, you know, scale your goat supply all the way up to 500, 1,000, however many goats you might need.
Okay. We may have to split things up a little bit. But that's okay, because that's why we're here. Try to figure it out before we screw it up.
Just ideas.
It's been a great session for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's why we tried to get in early, in the infancy stages.
It's very smart of you to be here and listen to everybody's experiences. There are so many directions that you can go in, and I think it is very important for you to make a list of maybe the top 3 things that you would like to accomplish first, and just focus on those top 3 things to get you to a point that you would be happy with. Because I think when you, and I've done it myself, so I think when you have a company or a product that has such mass capabilities, you have to contain yourself and bring yourself in to focus on what is most important to you. And also factoring in how is it going to affect you financially and lifestyle-wise. And I don't think there's a right or wrong answer for you, because you're living. You're the one who's making the decision. And because you have so many, you know, again, so many avenues that you could go down, I think you just have to create a model that you would be happy with. And I think that's what everybody is really just bringing to your attention, all these different variables that maybe you didn't look at just from all of our experiences. So I think you have a great concept, a great idea, and you have lots of potential. You just have to make it work for you and your family.
So there's two, New York Grown and Certified, and they talked to New York Ags, just came out with a program for grants, Grown and Certified. See, touch with Linda. So I don't know if it, again, it started with the Dirt Farmers, they've gone to Fish and Game. I'm not sure if it covers yours, but it's all about product, but to me, yours is Grown and Certified here. That may work as another opportunity to get grants. The other thing with Harvey and Paul, so actually what I was thinking about was horse farms for them, you know, but then it's not ag, and I think they fall under ag, so we have to be able to figure out, because there's still plenty of horse farms here, and there's still plenty of leased property in that arena if they would allow goats. So if we find something like that, they could put the goats on a horse farm if it's allowed, but then again, we gotta check the zoning, then we're back to regulations and zoning, and you're allowed horses, but you aren't allowed certain animals, it's all town codes.
Well, the town of Huntington, believe it or not, the whole way we sort of got around the town of Huntington is that
We were behind Don's place originally, right? Everything grew behind Don's place there in Huntington Station.
Was because the town specifically mentioned certain farm animals, but not
Right.
all farm animals.
There are certain towns you allow 5 chickens only.
So that's how they decided not to fight us on the goats. Somebody else had put in quite a bit of money with an attorney with goats before me.
Right.
And I got real lucky. They
Is that
decided
why you
that
want to
they,
stay in, there are other towns like Huntington, so you may have to go a little further out than Huntington if you're willing to go upstate, and maybe we could find other property that would maybe lease it to you. And that's what I think maybe should be the step in the money spent on building the business, not buying the property. Which is
Are
something
there
we
any
talk about.
goat population today, like on Long Island, in this specific area? that you know
any
of?
goat what?
Population. They have friends, and these goats know of any other relatives.
I actually, yes, they do. They do have relatives in, where is he?
I believe in Merrick, there's the Norman Levy Preserve, the town of Hempstead has goats and some other, I'm just throwing ideas out as far as potential partnerships, I don't know if, you know, that kind of stuff.
Those
Look into
goats,
that.
those goats are a way for the town to mow the lawn.
In North Hempstead, I think, just hired them to do Bar Beach or something.
We actually, town of Huntington was playing with that idea, but dropped it because the rental was too expensive. So I also figured I could do some sort of a symbiotic relationship with them. I'll lend you some goats.
But you have to be careful, I'm assuming, I don't know the business at all, but what kind of chemicals they put on the lawn.
You also,
Eat it.
you also have to be careful about what the goats eat. They say a lot of animals are smart enough not to eat what's gonna make them sick. Goats are not necessarily like that. Like any kind of stone fruit tree and stuff like that, they can't have any of that stuff. But they won't discriminate if they're just let to their own, I mean, they don't eat tin cans, but they will eat plants that are not good for them.
Well, another recommendation, if you are thinking about going to New York as opposed to Long Island, Stone Barn Farm is a place near Tarrytown that really focuses on local type of local food, and you might want to reach out to them because they have a whole farm and they have a services there. It's a restaurant. They also have it in the city as well, and it might be something that you could speak with them. They may have some interest in this type of product.
Absolutely.
And I can stop by and you can easily find it, but I'll come around and let you see where I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I definitely appreciate all of the feedback.
Just one more possibility. If you decide down the road that, like the example, the model of Elmhurst Dairy, which went from cow dairy to plant-based dairy, I just love that goat milk has within it oat milk as a plant-based, you know, possibility if you decide to keep your goats, but maybe not expand. So there are resources to help farmers make that transition.
So how does that fit into the plant-based world, goat milk? Is that?
No, she said oat milk.
Oat.
Drop the G.
What do I do with the G's? Part of that. I seriously, radicals, I see.
Yeah, it's a really emerging thing. It's displacing, regular dairy. So.
But isn't that made from oats?
It's made from oats, not goats. That's the point.
Oh, now I'm getting the conversation. I just was figuring out what we're doing with these guys and how you're getting the milk to be vegan. Any other questions? You'll be around, so we have a few minutes, but before I go, just any other, thank you very much. Good luck with it.